I came from a situation with where where the neighborhood, all of the houses in the neighborhood where I lived were for sale. And it led to an extremely interesting year of meetings and all sorts of things. There's a cinematography theme as well, which is the creation of this movie, of Property, and it actually sort of occurs in front of your eyes. The opening shot of the movie, well, the first thing is a crystal with light shining through it, and the word property. So I guess I was trying to say that's property. It's a bright, shiny thing, and then the long shot, the very long shot that circles around the entire room, and without seeing the character who is typing and talking. This is what property is. It's this stuff on the walls, and it's these walls, and it's this kitchen that he's in, and then it comes swinging around, and Walt Curtis, the poet, comes into view, and we see that he was the one who was typing, and now he's talking to himself and reciting some of the words, and then he stands up suddenly, and which is the beginning of the performance. And that is unusual too, because do people really do that when they're by themselves? Actually, I think they do, but he definitely did that. And so he stands up and begins to recite the poem that he has just written. And he's performing for himself, or he's performing for the camera, so he's performing for the spectator of this film. The distanciation in the film, where things happen that put a certain event or a certain concept in front of your eyes, and it is not actually the normal way of telling a story. So that was also a theme, to do something original like that. And so that has to do with what I was doing before as well, because I was doing theater. I was a theater director, and we had a theater troupe, and so we were constantly trying to figure out new ways to say things that were perhaps ordinary, but in an extraordinary way. And that is definitely the case with Property. So I wanted to transform that into something that would work in the cinema. It was done in any number of ways, actually. It was done in the creation, the conceptualization of the movie, and it was done in the shoot of the movie, the way that the choices that we made, and of course, perhaps most of all, it's in the edit of the whole of the material. If the movie is going along sort of at the beginning and you think, I'm watching a documentary, and then it appears that it is not a documentary because somebody does a performance that it was obviously pre-planned, or a fictional aspect is inserted there. It draws your attention, and it causes you to think about, what is the issue here? What is the point here? It was an effective way of making points and of confusing, perhaps, or intriguing spectators, thinking, where they were forced to think, is this documentary, or is this fiction? What is happening here, and why? The circle is also the collective that they are creating, because they become a member of the circle. So that becomes very vivid, very evident when they are sitting around the table later on in the film, and the camera circles around the table, so that we see it actually, that this is a collective that they have created. And that is the circle. Before both of the scenes where we have a circling around the table, there is a shot of the full moon, and which is also round, as you point out, and it's a witness looming in the window. When Karen, the dancer, does her performance, she is in a very open space. Everything has been moved out of that space, And she has a broom, and she moves in a circle around and around, and then she turns around herself and around and around. The circle comes in there as well. And each of the actors who perform at a certain time are also performing their own property. We own our talent, and they are showing their talent. That scene starts out with Lola watering her plants, but then she feeds the frog that is in her aquarium, and so we have been introduced to the frog, and then Corky arrives, and that is a scene that was heavily worked for sure. It is a scene of distancing that definitely shows what prostitution is about, and prostitution of all sorts. And even though he's probably not eager to take advantage of her services as a prostitute, but we get the point. Then they go to the bathroom and to the bathtub, and naked. They were naked, and they get into the bathtub together, and they are playful. But then the scene cuts back to that frog, and Corky had been making gestures of all sorts when he was in the bathtub like this, and what do you know? The frog is making the same gestures, and so it is again a way of belittling him, but it's also kind of charming, and funny, so it has multiple meanings, which is a very satisfying thing to come across. By the end, several of the talented people have left, and so they are not going to get the shiny, bright property that they had signed up for. But they have their own talent, and their talent is more important to them and more important to us. It's only later at the end of the movie, near the end of the movie, that Walt Curtis recites another poem.
Peckerneck Country!
Which is a summing up of what the culture is at that moment in Portland, Oregon, the redneck culture. And he is in front of real spectators, not just us watching this movie, but there are real spectators. And so his performance is for them in this case. But it also then, when his voice continues on, and we cut away, and we see him talking with Butch, the black person who had been part of who was or was still part of the group. They were in the place where the houses were for sale. But the scene remains mute, because what we hear is Walt Curtis's voice still reciting that poem about Peckerneck Country. I don't know if you can understand that, but that is to say a Peckerneck Country, that's about as negative of a description of a place that you could have. And so they, with their gestures, and Walt sort of says, "Are you still with us, or aren't you?" And we see Butch shaking his head in all directions, and we don't really know whether he's going to be with the group or not.